All right, welcome back to Real Estate Bites, my friends. This is episode number 113. So, I want to talk to you guys today about the house sale contingency, right? You want to buy a home, but you got to sell your home in order to buy the home. You can't get finance for the new home unless you sell your home and use those proceeds towards your down payment right now. So, you need to sell in order to buy. Yeah, you got a problem. Now, it amazes me how many agents and their buyers and or sellers are still completely flummoxed by this, and how much fear there is when, there are strategies that are tried and true. There are strategies that can be employed that should alleviate quite a bit of the stress and fear. Now, all of it can't be alleviated, but you can definitely alleviate it right up front by just going over some basic strategies. So I'm talking mostly to buyers here, a little bit to sellers. And you know what? There's even some things in here for agents that you may be able to employ when you're dealing with a house sale contingency in the future to make it easier on you as well as your clients. So the scenario, right? You want to buy a new home, but you got to sell your home. So in order to write an offer, you need to include the house sale contingency, meaning, in other words, the purchase of the new home is contingent upon you being able to sell your current residence. Now, I don't know a single agent or their seller who likes to see a house sale contingency attached to an offer that they receive. I can tell you buyers this, that if you write an offer with a house sale contingency attached and you are competing with other buyers for that property because it's a hot property, your offer with its house sale contingency is the first one that gets trashed. Worst case scenario is they use your offer simply to shop other offers and try to get them to move on price. Even if you're not competing, even if no one else has written an offer on this prospective house, if no one else is even showing interest, sellers still don't want to see your house sale contingency. And the only reason they're going to accept it is because they feel they have no other choice. I have written a number of offers with a house sale contingency attached. No one else is out there competing against me, and the sellers don't want to entertain it. And they're like, come back when you no longer have a house sale contingency. And I'm like, well, you got nothing else on the table. Why not just work with us here? But they won't do it. So, writing an offer with a house sale contingency, don't get me wrong, it's not an impossibility. This thing happens every single day. I've written many, many offers where I had the house sale contingency and I got people under contract for it. A contingency can either be whether your house is currently on the market or not, right? If you get under contract, then you got to get your house on the market immediately. I've been able to sell both of those, but they're not as common as being rejected because of that house sale contingency. So what do you do about this, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer? So first of all, if I'm writing an offer on behalf of my buyer and they have a house sale contingency attached, I am going to submit with the offer some data about the property, right? I want this listing agent to know where the property is, how much we're going to list it for once it's listed, and I'm going to supply them with a set of comparable sales so that they can see, is my price point in line? What are houses like this selling for? And I'm going to go through this stuff with that agent because typically I'm assuming that they don't know or they haven't done that much. And I'll get into a little bit of that, a little more nitty gritty, but I'm showing them sale price. I'm talking about, the amount of sales of this subject property that people might live in are happening recently. I want to show them where it's at. Another important thing that I cover with them is the median days on market. So I want them to see, hey, look, if this house is priced appropriately, typically in this neighborhood, it's selling and it's coming off the market in 2 weeks time, 3 weeks time, whatever it might be. Right. Now, again, I'm only doing that if I don't know this other agent. So if I know the other agent, if I know the listing agent is an active and productive agent who is familiar with the area that I'm writing on, or where my people live, rather, I'm not going to insult their intelligence by putting all that stuff forth. All I got to do is give them a brief description of the subject property and the price point that I want to sell at, and they should know enough to be able to go back to their people. But if the agent on the other end is not very experienced, or someone whom I don't know, and I'm going to go through this presentation with them in the exact language, in the exact way that I want them to go through with their seller, right? I want to be able to educate that agent on the process, on the property, on the typical turnaround for sales, like sales. And I want them to be able to take that information and deliver exactly what I'm telling them to their seller, to try to build confidence with their seller. Now, how do I know whether or not this agent knows what they're doing or has the proper experience? I'm going to look up their production on the MLS. I'm going to go in the MLS. I'm going to look them up, see what they did in the last year. How many properties have they sold and where? What price points have they sold at? That's going to give me a good idea as to whether or not this agent needs that sort of education that I just talked about or not, right? There's plenty of good agents out there that I haven't done a deal with yet. I do typically see the same 50 to 75 names, like a lot. Here in Lorain County, where you got 700 plus agents, I'm seeing the same 50 a lot. But that's just the way it goes. So the majority of agents out there, they don't have a whole lot of experience, and they may need that bit of education. Now, of course, don't be an asshole. Just, go through it. Be humble with them. Be generous in giving them knowledge, and ask them to help get the deal done, right? We all want to sell the house. You want to sell the house. Their seller wants to sell the house. They want to sell the house. We're all shooting for the same thing, right? So at any rate, that's the process that I'm going through. And again, if they are experienced and they know the market, I'm not going to send them a comp set. I'm not going to send them all that stuff and go through that little presentation. I don't want to insult their intelligence and piss them off, because if you don't think an agent won't, be biased in their presentation of offers to their sellers based on their emotion, then you need to watch more Real Estate Bites, because that's not the way it goes with humans and their emotions. So at any rate, that's how I am trying to present my house sale contingency to the other side. And so, if it's a long shot to get into a property with a house sale contingency, what's the best strategy? I can tell you what the best strategy is, and that's to not have a house sale contingency. So how do you do that, right? Well, sell your house. Get it on the market first, guys. And here's the pushback I get from my sellers every time I suggest this strategy. Well, we don't want to be homeless. Dude, you're not going to be homeless. You're not going to be homeless. We're not going to let that happen. You, in this market, this is a seller's market, right? And so you have the ability to negotiate extended possession, extended closing times. You can, a very common thing that I negotiate for my sellers is, we get under contract, but we give an additional 30 days of possession for nothing. And then after that, we start to rent back from the buyer of the home a certain amount per day. And usually the way that shakes out is I'm going to ask that other agent, I'm going to ask the buyer's agent who's buying my seller's home, as we're out shopping, I want to know what's their monthly mortgage payment look like. So at least let's make sure that our daily rental rate is going to cover that mortgage payment, should we need to push out beyond 30 days. But these are things, and I mean, you're not going to be, I've probably done a dozen or so of these deals. I have yet to have my seller be pushed into that place where now they're renting back. It hasn't happened. We've always been able to find them a solution in that 30 days of extra possession. And so now, what if the seller says, I'm looking for a real unique property. I'm looking for something that you just can't find. Well, that's even more reason to get your house on the market and get it sold. Why? Because when that unicorn that you're looking for finally shows its face, you don't want your house sale contingency to get in the way of your pursuit of that property, right? What you need to start doing is considering, okay, where can I live temporarily? What storage units are convenient for me to put all my extra stuff in? And what temporary living arrangement can I set up? I know Redwoods have some. There's a number of different apartment complexes and condo units around that will allow a short-term lease, 3 months, 6 months, whatever you might need. But get the house on the market. You're not going to be homeless. We can figure something out. If you are looking for something unique, that's more reason to get your house on the market right now. If there's less of those options available, because when it pops, I'm repeating myself here, when it pops and it comes on the market, if it's unique, especially if it's unique, and a lot of people are looking for that sort of unique, like a log cabin, say, or a nice little residence with 3-4 acres with some privacy around it. You don't want to get stuck losing that competition because you were not ready and you were not on the market and you did not have your house under contract. Okay, so the best strategy for dealing with a house sale contingency, if you're a buyer, is simply to not have one. Get your house on the market, right? Talk to your agent about the strategies of how can we get extra possession in time to look for our house, find our house, get under contract and close, and not have to move multiple times. There's another thing too, on the other side of that, sellers, going back to something I mentioned before, if somebody submits an offer with a house sale contingency and you don't have anything else, or the offer offers better terms with the exception of that house sale contingency, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, if they provide that comp set, right? If that agent provides that comp set and a little market data telling you how quickly they're selling, if you know what they're going to list for, and you get an idea that they're going to sell relatively quickly, have confidence in that, right? And I'll tell you what, if they don't supply it, well, then your agent should be going and doing that homework for you. So if the buyer's agent doesn't supply that alongside the offer, your agent who's representing you for the sale of that home should ask that person, where are you selling? What's the address? What are you going to list it for? And get them into the MLS and start doing the homework to say, hey, look, Mr. Seller, this one has the best terms, but we're scared of this house sale contingency, and why are they scared of the house sale contingency? Because you might not sell it, right? Or, the biggest concern I ever have is they get under contract, the contingency's lifted, but then that deal goes sideways and everything's funny. And it's complicated and stressful because you've got the buyers with their contingency. You've got the sellers here who they may or may not be under contract to buy something here. And then those people would be affected by it. And I've been through that too. And it is stressful, but there's always a solution. There's always a way to work it out. So at any rate, if you're selling and you are receiving offers or just one offer, and the house sale contingency, aside from that contingency, all the other terms are the best. They're offering the best price point, maybe a lack of inspections or, an appraisal gap or something like that. Do the homework, see what they're going to sell on their end and how quickly and how confident you can be in their sale. And don't be scared of that house sale contingency if they're offering a good home at a good price in a neighborhood where it sells pretty quickly, right? That's all I got about the house sale contingency. They're tried, proven strategies to get past it, to get past that stress. So now let's move into our statistics. We cover these every single week. And let me share the screen here. Here we go. Real Estate Bites, episode number 113. So there were 519 single-family homes and condos on the market in Lorain County this morning when I took a look at these stats. There were 67 home sales closed last week in the county. The median square feet of those houses sold was 1,819 square feet. The median purchase price was $277,675. A lot of fun numbers here in this stat line this week. Median square foot value, $174.28. So talk about this all the time. Square foot value is the statistic that I've been tracking in real time to see what's going on with home values and prices in real time. Are they going up? Are they going down? Or they staying the same? I've showed you in past episodes how they continue to go up, right? Column L, we're taking a look at these average median square foot values by quarter to see what's going on with prices. And we've seen the prices with a couple of exceptions early on in 2023, early 2024. We are seeing these prices go up and up and up. So now that I'm saying that though, as I look through the first 6 weeks, right? We're almost midway through, Q4 2025. As I look at these square foot values, we are looking at a little bit of a correction. So it's right under $172 a square foot through these first 5 weeks of Q4, right? That is a correction. And I don't, because of the time of year, probably don't expect it to come up higher and to match this 175.54. But you know what, guys, the last time we saw a correction in pricing was in a Q4. So nothing that is surprising to me, where we might see a little correction in pricing where the average, the median square foot value dips a little bit. But I'm saying, if things continue the way they've been going, and I don't see why not, especially if these interest rates stay here around 6.25 or drop even lower, come springtime, late spring of 2026, I am predicting that we're going to see these median square foot values begin to creep up again, right? Okay, so median days on market for the homes that sold last week, just over 2 weeks, guys. Again, that is going through advertising, marketing, negotiating offers, accepting an offer, and then going through inspection and financing contingencies. It's only taking just over between 2 and 3 weeks. It's not long. Homes are still flying, right? The interest rate on a conventional 30-year note was 6.29% when I checked it this morning. And then the big sale of the week was in Legacy Isle of Avon Lake, $1,152,923, which oddly enough was its actual list price. This was new construction there in Legacy Isle. There were no pictures. I imagine that this was probably negotiated before they even put it on the market. That's why I have such a funny list price. Nevertheless, that was the big one of the week. No pictures to show you. So that wraps up Real Estate Bites, episode number 113. I thank you guys for joining me. As always, take care of yourselves. Take care of one another. I love you, people. I'll see you next week.